SBC Media.
Brazil, a global economic powerhouse, deeply passionate about sports, and now home to one of the hottest markets in gaming. And we're giving it the full SBC treatment. Join industry leaders, market experts, and all the major players in the country for 3 days of content, exhibition, and epic networking at the first ever SBC Summit Rio.
SBC Leaders connects the gambling industry's top-tier operators and associations to share the best ideas, collaborate on solving the biggest issues, and push innovation throughout the betting and gaming industry. If you're an operator and want to join the discussion, visit sbcleaders.com for more information.
Whether he's smashing nets or signing bills, Romário somehow manages to remain on the cover of the Brazilian news. Some time has gone by since he hung up his boots, but he has traded them for a suit and tie to act as a senator in Brazil. With the country being the center of attention for the gaming industry in Latin America, every move on the regulatory front gets dissected to the bone. Last week, a report from Romário was approved by the Sports Commission he presides in the Senate, and that's what we will discuss here today in the iGaming Daily podcast, brought to you by SBC Summit Rio. I am Fernando Noodt, business journalist for SBC Noticias, and since 3 is a crowd and 2 is company, I am joined by Isadora Marcante, business journalist for SBC Noticias Brasil, and our very own expert in all things related to the country. Isadora, how are you today?
I'm feeling very good. Thank you for this amazing intro. I loved it.
Oh, really? I worked very hard in it, really. It's my first time hosting the iGaming Daily podcast by myself. Of course, we have been joined by James Ross quite sometimes. Also, Lucia Mourinho has stepped in to host, but this is my very first time hosting the podcast. So I actually put some effort in my intro, to be honest. So I appreciate the compliment.
Oh, it's a really good intro, and I'm sure you're going to smash it today.
Oh, thank you very much. We always do smash our podcast. We like doing our things very smashing, in a very smashing way. So brace yourselves, because here we come. Isa, the Sports Commission, like we said, issued a report last week. Why don't you take us through what was approved last week?
Yes. So Romário, actually, he did like a second edition of his report, and they decided to not accept the regulation, the legalizing and regulating the online games part that we had on the bill, that they were intending to do that. So they decided to not go with that, probably because they think it's like something very different than sports betting. So probably we'll have to have a new bill for this in the future if we decide to legalize and regulate online games. But also another thing on his report is that they decided to remove the paragraph that it was saying to ban bets on isolated events, such as red, yellow cards, corners, and every type of bet that depends on only one player, maybe. So they decided to remove this because they didn't see this as something to prevent, actually, or to avoid match fixing issues. And another thing that they did, it not included in his report, but they approved in the Commission of Sports, the amendment to the bill that prohibits advertising. So we have to now see what's going to happen regarding this, especially because now some football clubs in Brazil expressed their opinion against this vote. So we'll have to see what's going to happen. But yeah, they approved, actually, like in general, they said, yes, let's regulate the sports betting market. They suggested a few amendments as well, like we mentioned in other podcasts during the SBC Summit Latin America, that they changed, actually, instead of 3 years, as was proposed by the Chamber of Deputies, the license expiration would be like for 3 years, and now they decided to do for 5 years instead of 3. Like, so they made it longer, as it was proposed on the provisional measure signed by Lula in the middle of this year in June. So yeah, we'll have to wait and see what's going to happen now. But we are moving forward. That's a good thing.
So there's some good news for the operators in Brazil because, like you said, it's a longer licenses for them with 5 years instead of 3. But now there's like a new focus of conflict with this restriction to advertising, and they haven't actually modified the tax regime that was proposed, right? It's 18% to the gross gaming revenue, right?
Yes, they want to change that, actually. Senator Angelo Coronel wants to reduce the tax on DGR. Instead of 18%, they want to do as 12%. I believe that comes because of the public opinion. I mean, like the operator's opinion on that. We discussed this matter for so many times already. They were not happy. Operators in general, they weren't happy with this amount, with this 18% on GGR. And actually, Angelo Coronel also mentioned that the Chamber of Deputies made a mistake when calculating the tax on winnings. He said that they calculated based on the bet money plus the winning money. So now they want to change this calculation to be able to charge the players only on what they actually won. So not the bet money, only the earnings money. So that's something else that they have to discuss and see if it's going to reduce from 13% for 21%, if I'm not mistaken. That's like a calculation that he did like without a lot of information, but he just mentioned that they will reduce, and apparently it will be 21%.
Well, that's certainly an important topic to discuss. I was actually listening to the podcast you did, the interview you did with Thiago Gomez last week, and he was talking about how it is important to collect taxes, but it is also important to get the industry regulated in order to get the jobs created, right? To get the people an opportunity to develop themselves with this new industry coming into place, with these new jobs being created. And so it is very important that the government actually looks into this really thoroughly and decides the best scheme to actually create an environment that's beneficial both for the operators and the government. Because if you only think of the tax, you will, of course, you might actually create an environment that's not so appealing for some operators, so your industry might not be as interesting for a foreign company to come in Brazil and invest. But we were talking actually about the another point of conflict with this, which is the gambling advertising restrictions. What is that about?
Well, like we mentioned in the beginning of this podcast, the football clubs didn't like actually the votes that the Commission of Sports had on this topic. They voted for banning gambling advertisements, and of course, this might, I'm not going to say will, but let's use might. This might cause a huge problem in terms of actually collecting taxes, because if you don't promote something, if you don't advertise something, how are you going to make people aware of what you are offering, of what you are selling? So the society in general really liked it, because we have like a huge problem here in Brazil. People don't understand how the industry works. So they are like, I would say that's something that from my perception, 50% are against regulating the market and 50% are in favor of it, especially because of the creation of jobs and employing more people and generating more money to the country and so on. So Jorge Cajuru, who is the president of the bicameral commission for the sports betting provisional measure, said that he will fight for the advertising in sports commission. He's a very engaged person in this topic. He believes in a regulated industry. So he said he used his social media to say that he will use everything he has to prevent banning advertising gambling. So We just have to wait and see. Now in Brazil is always like that. We have a step forward and then we have to wait and see what's going to happen, especially because now the topic is going to be discussed in the Committee for Economic Affairs in the Senate. Then it will be voted on the Senate to go back to the Chamber of Deputies for final conclusion. So it's a matter of, okay, we nailed this. Now we have to wait and see what's going to happen next.
I think it's important to have a senator like Senator Kajuru on your team when speaking of like he's going to defend the advertising for gambling, because not only he is probably the most stylish lawmaker I have ever seen. I mean, he has some swag for real. You should look him up. Georgi Kajuru, is it? He's very stylish for real, but I think it's very important to have someone that advocates for you in Congress, because of course advertising is a key element of any industry, not only gambling. But the gambling industry really needs to be in the football shirts, in the stadium, which is actually what's actually going to be limited. So let's think about, for example, Luis Suarez, who came to Gremio, to your team, actually, Isa, and a main part of Suarez coming to Gremio was that the sponsor was a gambling company that actually like put some effort in bringing Luis Suarez, and he came in and has scored 21 goals in 31 games. So he's making a significant contribution to the sports side. So it is important to have these companies putting money in the teams because they help develop the sport. And we are, of course, talking about football here, which is the most popular sport in the continent and, of course, in Brazil. But they also help develop other sports that are actually growing, like, I don't know, volleyball or basketball in some countries, which is not so popular. So it is very important to have these companies putting their money into the sports structure, and not and it's important that the government sees this while regulating. So it's important the government doesn't cut those revenue streams for the sports structures, and they actually look for a way to develop the best possible framework so it's not like abusive advertising, but it's also beneficial for this for the teams and other sports. Of course, we have seen pushes like this to limit advertising in other countries like Chile, which has forced the Football Association in Chile, the ANFP, they have been forced to end their agreement with Betson. Other companies being pushed to end their agreements, even though not companies, I mean teams, being pushed to end their agreements, but not being able to do so yet because there's no legislation about it. But they really need to make the most out of this scenario, right? Because you are actually developing the regulation framework from scratch, and it's very important that you do it right, so the industry is beneficial for everyone, for the people, for the community, and for the companies, of course, which are the ones that actually put the investment that eventually generates the jobs, generates the tax revenue, and all of that. But we were talking about controversy, right? It has sparked controversy, this report. Besides advertising, besides the tax issue, we have seen a lot of different opinions coming into place. How does this proposed bill move forward from now on, from a procedural aspect, and what changes do you think it might go through?
Well, now the bill has to be voted on by the Committee for the Economic Affairs in the Senate. Then we'll go back to the Senate as whole to be voted on, and then it will be sent back to the Chamber of Deputies because they were the ones who draft the bill and sent it. So every time this happens, if the Chamber of Deputies decides something and writes a bill, it has to go back to them so they can vote. They can do their final vote, like for conclusion, and it starts, and we can start actually a regulated market. Well, I would say that this could move forward quite fast because we can be surprised by how fast they are doing things related to this. In the past, I didn't see this coming to an end this year, and I didn't see we facing a regulated market in the beginning of next year, but this might happen before the recess that we have at the end of the year in the Congress. So I'm positive, I'm optimistic regarding this. I think we're going to see maybe not a fully regulated market by the end of the year, but I believe we can see major progress by the end of the year, like the end of the year for them, because for now it's not like they have the recess in December, in the middle of December until January. So again, let's wait and see.
Well, Isa, I like your positivity because there's actually some reasons to be positive about the progress of the bill. I was going to ask you how likely it is it for this to move in the next few weeks? And you've, of course, already answered that. But there's actually reason to believe that this will actually make progress in the next few weeks, because we've seen President Lula da Silva meeting this week with Rodrigo Pacheco, which is the president of the Senate, to address the possibility to actually finalize the legalization of the gambling industry. So how important is it to have like this support or the intention from the executive branch in this push?
Well, it's important. I mean, it's a natural move that we do here in Brazil. We have these constant meetings between parliamentarians and the president, or people related to the president. And one thing for sure that they talked about, that Pacheco mentioned, was about the sports betting market in Brazil. Of course, he didn't talk much. He didn't explain a lot what was talked, but he said that for sure they will discuss the topic in the Senate to move forward with this, with the regulation. So they talked actually major about how to increase the tax collection in Brazil, how to collect more money and to generate more benefits to the citizens, to the people, right, to the Brazilian society. And sports betting, of course, is a major, is a key to developing Brazil in terms of economy, especially like we mentioned in the beginning of this podcast, generating jobs and employing people. We have a lot of unemployed people in Brazil. We've faced this problem for years and years. So if we have a regulated industry in the right terms, we can generate more than 40,000 jobs in Brazil, like Thiago Gomes mentioned in our interview in this podcast a couple of days ago. So yeah, like apparently we will see things moving forward. I hope quite fast, like we've been seeing in the past few months. And that was basically it. Pacheco didn't say much. It's something that they do also to not create speculation. So yeah, but that's it. Like I think that this meeting between Pacheco and Lula can bring good things for the industry in general.
Okay, we will surely keep an eye on Brazil. And if you want to be updated with the news in the country, you should be sure to follow sbcnoticias.com/br for SBC Noticias Brazil. Make sure to go and listen to that great interview Isadora did with Thiago Gomes in SBC Summit Latin America. And be sure to stay tuned to the iGaming Daily Podcast. I am Fernando Noodt. Thank you very much, Isadora Marcante from SBC Noticias Brazil. Thank you, Anaya McDonald, for producing this episode. And to our listeners out there, thank you and goodbye.
SBC Media.